The running game might be really, really good this year, might be the key to the offense. Let's talk about that. Plus, were the quarterbacks good or a little inconsistent today? And maybe why were they a little inconsistent? Let's talk about all that and more. Locked On Badgers. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Ryan Harings. As always, thank you. Just thank you for helping us build this community, for spending some time with us, for talking Badgers with us, for being part of this. Thank you so much. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. All right, let's talk practice, right? Let's talk what we saw today. I wanted to zoom out a little bit. So yesterday we kind of went position by position, and we're going to get into some players that stood out today, but I want to zoom out a little bit and talk a little bigger picture stuff. What have we kind of seen over the course of these last three practices? What have we read? What have other people talked about? The big one I want to start with is big picture on the offense, the rushing attack. This could be a really good running team this year. And I'm looking at the schedule. I don't know how many teams, if this team is going to be able to run the ball like I think they might be able to, I don't know how many teams are going to really stack up to the Badgers and be able to stop them from running the ball. I think Iowa certainly can. They are, until proven otherwise, they're going to be really good in the front seven every single year. Oregon, Penn State's got dudes. But this rushing attack is going to be the key to the offense. And I want to take it even a step further. I think the quarterback run game is going to be a much bigger part of this offense than at least coming into camp, I thought. And I think is a much bigger part of this offense than people are talking about. So they're repping a lot of RPOs, a lot of options. They had a quarterback draw to Braden Locke. You're seeing it. They're purposely doing a lot of this in individual drills at the beginning of the practice. All the quarterbacks were going through to the right and to the left, just some ball handling drills with the option, really focusing on being able to get the pitch off correctly with either hand. So they're really repping it. I've been a basketball coach, right? And it's really hard when you're drawing out the practice plan to do everything you want to do. So the stuff that you're doing, it's purposeful, right? You're repping and you're putting resources into getting better at the things that are really important to you. They're really repping the quarterback run game. Options to left and right with both Locke and TVD. Again, there was a quarterback draw to Locke. There's a lot of RPO action. That quarterback run game, they're going to really force. And listen, it's not that it's going to be like Lamar Jackson. Like, they're not going to run it like 10 times a game with quarterback, but they're going to do it enough where they're going to force defenses to account for that 11th man. They're going to force defenses play after play after play to dedicate someone at times to either spy on that quarterback, or that edge discipline from the edge rushers. They're not going to be able to just pin their ears back and get upfield. They're going to have to understand that quarterback can keep it, that quarterback can make them pay if they overrun their reads. I think they're really going to use that to put a little bit of doubt and a little bit of uncertainty into defensive front seven. So that's going to open up a whole bunch of other things. I talked about it a couple times already, so I don't want to belabor the point, but TVD is he's decisive. I was going through the notes, I was watching the practice, and I just wrote in big capital letters on my notepad, decisive. If he sees a gap and will open up in the defensive line, he will put that ball down, tuck it, get north-south, and rip off 15, 20 yards. For the second practice in a row, TVD ripped off a couple big-time gainers off the option, off the RPO game. Great read. And then once he finds that seam, he can gash it. He really has – I'm sick of people saying deceptive speed. Stop it. Stop it. He doesn't have deceptive speed. He has legit speed. It's speed. It's just speed. He's fast. He's legitimately a fast dude. It's not deceptive speed. He's just a fast guy. It's time we stop pretending like he's not an athlete. Brady Collins has talked about it. He runs over 20 miles an hour. It takes him a minute. He's not starting and quick stop and go type stuff. But when he finds a seam and he puts his foot in the dirt and gets north-south, he can outrun linebackers. You need an angle to get him unless you're, obviously defensive back, that kind of stuff. But he's going to be a weapon this year. And we saw it again in practice. And at some point, you just got to acknowledge this is going to be a big part of the offense. We saw it in the end zone. He took up the middle. He saw the gap in the defense line open up, got a touchdown against the ones. Again, on a couple outside options, our RPO type action, he again, against the ones and the twos, he was able to gash them. And this is a faster defense, and he's still been able to rip off big chunks of yardage. So what you don't want is him taking a bunch of unnecessary hits. Like, he's going to have to be smart about it. He's a bigger frame dude, but you still can't have him absorbing a ton of contact. So definitely he's going to have to be smart, get down, slide, get out of bounds. But when that opportunity is there, he's going to take it, and he's going to make some defenses pay this year. I think that's a pretty exciting part of this. Continuing on with the rushing attack, they were doing a lot of interesting things today with 3 running backs in the backfield, both with lock and TVD. So a bit of an inverted wishbone where one running back's behind the quarterback, and then you have a guy on either side flanking the quarterback. Again, these are all outputs of what we talked about, right? We've talked about the running back depth chart is pretty loaded. It's better than I think even we thought, right? Both the freshmen can play. Tawee Walker can play. Ches is going to be able to play. By the way, Jackson Aker looks really physical. He looks faster. He looks tough. He looks versatile. He's going to play. And Cade Yakimelli has had, has had moments. So how do you get all these weapons on the field? Well, you put 3 of them in the backfield. And then out of that, you're going to see this year, I think, a lot of flexibility, a lot of kind of unique looks. They're taking those 3 running backs and they had a couple different looks out of that today, right? RPO with maybe Aker leading the way, or a little play action where you're play actioning to one of them and slipping a couple other running backs out. There's a lot of flexibility that those lineups give you because the running backs themselves are versatile, right? All those guys can catch the ball. All those guys are pretty fluid in space. All those guys, especially Walker and Aker, man, they can step up and they can stone somebody in pass protection. So they're really versatile weapons, and now you're kind of stacking them in the backfield, plus a quarterback that can run. There is a ton of things you can do out of that are just going to be nightmare fuel for a linebacker trying to key on reads, right? A lot of misdirection out of that, RPOs, play action passing opportunities out of that, screen games out of that. So definitely something to keep an eye on. But in yesterday's practice, there was a lot of 2-back stuff. Today, they did a lot of 3-back stuff. Definitely trying to get those guys on the field. Continuing to talk about the running game again, zooming out kind of big picture. One of the things I wanted to talk about today was just how big I think this rushing attack is going to be for this offense. We talked about TVD. Dilon Jones, really good day for Dilon. Really, really good day for Dilon Jones today. Had a couple, excuse me one sec. Dilon had a couple really, really nice jump cuts in space, had a spin move, ran through contact on Austin Brown, broke that tackle. Also a guy who finishes runs. Dilon is just a really natural runner for a freshman. He looks the part. He looks like a sophomore or junior out there. He looks like a person who's been coached. He has the right type of size. Incredibly smooth, right? Between the tackles, no wasted motion, finds the gap, makes people miss, and then finishes runs. Somebody who's going to be really tough to take down. We talked to some of the linebackers today. We had linebacker availability, and they talked about it. They talked about how advanced the freshman running backs are, how tough they are to bring down in space. A lot of praise there from the players that go against them all the time. So again, this rushing attack is going to be, I think, the backbone of the offense this year. And then I can't go practice without talking about my guy, Tawee Walker. Again, I don't know how Oklahoma let him go, quite frankly. I don't know how they did it. There had to be some car dealerships in Norman that could contribute to the NIL fund to keep him there, because I don't. He's too good to lose to the portal. If you're a major program, which the Sooners definitely are, I'd say just listen. So if you go to practice, and I hope everyone that wants to is able to go to the open practice coming up on Saturday. The collisions when Walker hits people, there are audible ooh, like from the people, the players watching, right? The 2s and the 3s that are watching off to the side that are getting ready to get in. Like, he elicits audible reactions on collisions. And I'll give the defensive backs credit today. Wohler came up. There was a big collision between him and Tawee Walker. But Walker just falls forward. It almost doesn't matter who hits him. There was a really nice job. I thought Lofi came up and did a great job of being as physical as he could be with Walker. I mean, he stopped the play, but again, Walker's going to fall forward for a couple yards. And again, it's that audible, ooh, like you can hear it when he hits people. And I talked to Leon Lowry about it. And Lowry said some of the same thing, like just a physical guy. So this rushing attack, man, I think it's going to be one of the better ones the Badgers have had in a couple years, at least since Jonathan Taylor was here. I think there's really strong depth. I think TVD is going to add an element to it that is going to be hard on defenses and create some unique possibilities for the Badgers. So be excited. We're going to talk about passing game in a second, which I think is still a little inconsistent, but I'm going to give you a reason why maybe it is a little inconsistent. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. First, a quick break for our friends of the show over at Game Time. Listen, I've talked about it. we talk a lot. Like you and I, we talk a lot. If you want to go check out something, go use Game Time. Like Game Time is your ultimate source for whatever ticket you need. And it doesn't have to be football, like whatever you want to indulge in. French cinema. Go get you a French cinema ticket over on Game Time. Whatever it is, you can find those tickets on Game Time. Theaters, concerts, football games, basketball, baseball, Major League Baseball right now. Game Time's the best place to get those tickets. Right? It's fast, it's easy, it's simple, it's cheap. You can go get whatever you need over on Game Time. You get pictures of the seat, plus pictures of what's around you, so you know exactly how close that hot dog dude is and exactly how close the beer table is, all on Game Time. It is the best, easiest, cheapest, simplest, most stress-free way to getting the tickets. And listen, there's a lot of stress in life, not just big picture, but also like I can't figure out how to beat people on NCAA 25. It's stressful. I'm not going to add to that stress with Game Time. Right now, go over to Game Time. Take all the guesswork out of getting your tickets. Terms do apply, but create your account. Use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's Locked On College for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Okay, let's keep talking quarterbacks. Let's talk quarterbacks. Let's talk passing game. Let's talk some inconsistencies there and what we saw today. Once again, I've been consistent for a couple days on this. I think it's TBD's job. I think he just gives you an upside, and today wasn't his best day. Right? Today was not his best day, but even today, I think the highs and the lows of TBD, it's a bit of a roller coaster. He threw some beautiful throws today. And we've already talked about the running ability of TBD and the element that adds. So keep that in the back of your mind, because at times he's going to give you another running back almost in the backfield. But just from a pure quarterback standpoint, when he is locked in, he threw some tremendous footballs today. A great pass to Tretch in the end zone, a great pass to CJ. CJ beat in a red zone drill, a quick out, beat Nizer Forkrin for a tough catch. That was just a dime on the money. TBD laced a really pretty throw right across the middle to Tretch that I didn't even think had any business really being thrown. He laced it in there. He has the ability to really feather a ball in between people. You can see where the arm strength plays in there. Like, you have to have a certain type of fastball to get the ball through some of the spots on the defense that TBD's fitting it. So you see all the strengths, right? You see all the touch. You see the ability to make a bunch of different throws. So you see the ability, even against tight coverage, to fit the ball into windows. And you just realize, wow, what an upside. Like, ton of upside to this guy. And then he also threw 2 picks today, right? And this is a little bit of what Miami fans have talked about when they've talked about TBD. And I think I think they're a little over the top, but that's typical of a fan base who loses a quarterback, right? Who they're going to kind of crap on them somewhat. But they've said, and a couple of things I've talked to the Locked On Canes reporter, and he said, listen, the highs are really high, but there's going to be some throws that just leave you scratching your head. And he had a couple of those today. Skeleton drills, Hunter Wohler stepped in front of one, picked him off. Hunter Wohler is a really good player. He's going to do that to some people. Sometimes you just got to tip your cap, but you really can't throw picks in skellies, right? When there's no pass rush, like that's not great. Another play later in the practice, there was some pressure. TBD stepped up, and he just kind of airmailed the throw. Preston Zachman came up the pick. It wasn't a great DB throw; it just kind of went right to him. Or a great DB play, just kind of went right to him. Right? Those are plays those are the backbreakers, and all the good that TBD did today. And I think there was a ton of good that TBD had today. A ton of really pretty throws and decisive decisions on the ground. And then you throw the 2 picks, and it's just hard to reconcile the two. There was a play, CJ Williams got open on a vertical on the right side. Probably would have been a walk-in touchdown if the throw had been a little bit better, right? If they had led him a little bit more, CJ probably walks into the end zone. Instead, the throw's a little underthrown. CJ had to come back for it. It got tackled, at the 5 or 8, somewhere in that range, where that needs to be a touchdown. Like, you got to hit those deep throws when they're there. You got to lead them. And so, again, I think it was a little inconsistency today. Braden Locke had some moments, but he doesn't give you the same juice on the ground. And it just feels like TBD has a bit of a stranglehold. It's developing a bit of a stranglehold on this, but it's those interceptions that are going to, you just can't throw those. You can't have those mistakes, right? And that's captain obvious for me. Everybody gets that. Still, you see the upside, right? You still see the physical tools. I want to pivot a little bit, though, to multiple times in practice today. Multiple times, Braden Locke had to throw the ball away, or TBD had to buy time, and then try to force something in. This secondary is good. And we talked about Rico a ton. I thought he's good today. We talked about Wohler a ton. I thought he was really good today. Obviously he had the pick, but Wohler also came up and showcased some of the physicality, again, taking on Walker. He's really good too. But man, Nizer Forkran continues to impress as cornerback too. I thought Delancey had some really nice moments. Delancey had a really nice breakup on Tyrell Henry where he got his hand in there. Cluna, I thought, had some really nice moments. They did some one-on-one deep drills. I think trying maybe because they've struggled a little bit with some of the deep passing, at least in the practices I've seen. So they did some individual work on that. Cluna was the one cornerback that I saw actually came up with an interception on those drills. So I thought he had some nice moments. I mentioned Max Lofi and some of the physicality there. This secondary is good. And this is where everything's intertwined. Everything kind of comes together, right? Some of the issues, I think, at times with the deep passing and some of the inability to connect on some of those, some of that has just been the coverage has been exquisite. There have been multiple times, again, where even in Skelly's, where quarterbacks have had 4 or 5 seconds, they haven't been able to find a guy, or they've had to force a throw, or they had to buy time and then try to force something as a receiver made a secondary move. And you're never going to have to cover for 5 or 6 seconds. So realistically, in those situations, those are sacks. So I would be very encouraged by the secondary. I'm very encouraged by what I've seen from the secondary. I think there's more depth there. I really do think, man, the hype on Nizer is real. We talked to Coach Matt Mitchell about him, outside linebackers coach, but obviously was his head coach previously. I think there's a real steal there, and there's potential all conference potential with Forkran, like second or third team. And then you pair that with Rico, and then you pair that with Wohler, and you pair that with Austin Brown. There's a lot to like there. I think the depth's there. I think there's some NFL talent there. So some of this, I think, is defensive back play. And then you get into the other question, right? And this is something I was talking to Nick Osen with. We were watching practice together. Some of it is the age-old question with Wisconsin receivers. Are they separating, right? How much of this is – and it's really hard to separate these things, right? I think genuinely the defensive backfield is pretty good. I think the secondary is pretty good, but you need receivers to separate too. And there's just been a little bit of issue doing that. And then when they do separate on some of those deep throws, they haven't always hit. So I would call it passing game inconsistency, but coupled with really strong secondary play today. That kind of highlighted it. But you see the upside with Van Dyke, as I mentioned. All right, let's move on. Let's get some comments in here. Okay, let's get some comments in here. Yeah, Matchy says it sounds like we might need to be more run heavy this year. I think today was a really run heavy day, and it feels like that is to me it feels like that's probably going to be the strength of the offense. I feel like it is going to be where they lean, and that's okay. If you can establish that, and I think they're going to be able to against most teams, then it gets even easier for Van Dyke, right? Then it gets even easier for Locke if he ends up being in there, because it's going to open up that play action game. It's going to open some of those deep play action shots if those safeties are starting to creep up, if those linebackers are biting on things. I also think this is a good yak team. You know, a guy like Tretch is going to be really good in the open field after a catch. A guy like Pauling can do that. A guy like Bryson Green can do that with his physicality. So I do think it's going to be a team that leans on the run and then utilizes a lot of play action to create some things there. Okay. Bo Dragon says, I'll be optimistic when I see VD make plays with his arm. And the defense being able to tackle. Until then, it's just talk. He's made a lot of plays with his arm. He really has. He's made some real high-level, like elite throws that I've seen in the 3 days I've been watching him here. So he has made plays with his arms. But I'm telling you, when he hits the corner, or when he finds that crease and John Pius, who we know is really athletic, is struggling to catch up. Like, I'm just telling you, the speed's real. It's real. And I don't know what else. I would buy that. I would buy that stock. I would buy that TBD is going to be a running thread stock right now before it gets too much more expensive. Okay, let's pause there. Let's come back. Let's take a quick break, and we're going to come back. We're going to talk a little bit about individual players or other news and notes that I thought stood out, including a couple of young guys earning reps with the ones and the twos. I thought was pretty exciting to see. We're going to come back and do that on Locked On Badgers, but first, a quick break for our friends of the show. And as always, a quick second to say thank you. Thank you so much for tuning into Locked On Badgers, for being part of this community. I appreciate the heck out of all of you. Okay, let's get into some news and notes here. Some other things I found interesting, and this is just going to be kind of a smorgasbord. I want to start with Paul Haynes. Man, I think the Badgers nailed that coaching hire. So First of all, look at the result on the field. Nizer Forkern looks great. Rico had 7 picks last year. Max Lofi's coming together. RJ Delancey looks good. Great early returns on Xavier Lucas. Like, you can just look at the early returns on the field, but he does some really unique individual drill work that I haven't seen in a lot of places. He has this drill they were doing today where he lines up 3 of his DBs, arms out, and then he has another DB run behind them, and they're firing passes through the windows here, just trying to get DBs ready to catch a pass quickly. I think he's a really good coach. By the way, when you see Amari Snowden in that drill with the arms extended, boy, you see the upside. Like, you really see the upside at that point. He looks like a condor. So some nice reps from Amari Snowden today, by the way. I've been a little curious at his size and his weight, how he's going to hold up on the boundary. But he had some nice reps against Chris Brooks Jr. He was going up against CJ Williams. He just needs to be physical, right? And this is something Coach Paul Haynes has talked about. He said specifically, you are not Rico Hallman. You are not, DeCluna. You are Amari Snowden. You have to be physical. You have to use your body at the line of scrimmage. You have to get hands on people. And I think as he continues to do that, maybe we're going to see the light click for him. A preferred walk-on to keep an eye on. So Langdon Nordgaard, 6'4", 6'5", in-state kid. Like, I'm kind of intrigued here. So he was one of the receivers that won on those deep one-on-one balls. He has a really big frame. He's got some tracks. He's kind of a track guy too. So I think he's got a little more speed than people think, and he's got a big frame, good hands. I actually really liked his high school film. Talking to some people on staff, he's a guy that they were kind of high on too as a PWO. It's always going to be a long haul, and it's always going to be difficult for a preferred walk-on, but he is kind of the unique frame and athletic background, multi-sport guy. I would file it away. Maybe he becomes kind of a version of that bigger boundary receiver that you've been looking for. So I would file that away. A couple other guys, young players that got some reps. Derek Jensen got some reps with the 2s today. Freshman offensive lineman out of in-state Wisconsin kid. I thought he looked pretty good. Now, he did struggle in Nelu Lafayette. Let's bring that up. Another good day for Lafayette. Another good day where he flashed. He got pressure. He got around Jensen just on a speed rush, where afterwards you could see Coach Blazek talking to Jensen, saying, hey, you gotta kick out, get in space. But Lafayette is just different. He's once again flashing in the individual pass rushing drills and in the team live drills. He just creates pressure. He gets havoc. I said it on last show. I'm going to repeat it. I think he finds a way to get meaningful reps this year. It's going to be in packages, but if he can just continue to flash as a pass rusher, why wouldn't you get him some reps to see what he's going to do? Because next year, you're going to lose Pius. You're going to lose Lowry. You're going to lose pieces, and you want a guy like Lafayette to have some reps underneath him, under his belt, especially with Heiberger being a little banged up. I think Lafayette is going to play this year, and it was another really good day for him. Elijah Hills, let's talk defensive line depth. Elijah Hills had some really nice flashes today. Had a really nice tackle on Dylan Jones, knife through. Oh, Cade Yakimelli, sorry. Elijah Hills had a really nice tackle on Cade Yakimelli. A couple good reps today, a couple good reps yesterday's practice. Feels like he could be a guy that gives you a few reps this year. So I'm encouraged by that because they need him. They need the depth. So I think there's probably better depth there than I gave it credit coming into fall camp, which is phenomenal. It's awesome. Rush defense. So this is one I go back and forth on. Last year, our rush defense, Wisconsin's rush defense, especially on the edges, especially containing outside runs, mobile quarterbacks was really tough. I think they've cleaned up those outside issues for the most part this year. Jaheim Thomas, Leon Lowry, John Pius, they all flow really well on the outside. They'll chase plays down from the backside. They stack and shed pretty well. They hold the point. Those are physical, big outside linebackers. Pius is over 250 now, talking to Coach Mitchell. I think we're good there. They did a really good job today of stacking and shedding, extending plays. Jaheim Thomas really flows well. I'm a little nervous on the inside still. There's still a little too much gashing on the inside of the Badgers' rush defense. If there's a spot on this defense that I think worries me the most, it's kind of that interior rush D. It's a spot where I still see the Badgers, Dylan Jones, Walker. And again, I think that's going to be a good rushing attack. So I'm not like apocalyptic that the Badgers are moving the ball on the ground against this Badgers defense. But I do think there's some teams this year that are also going to be good rushing attacks. And you're going to have to be stouter in the middle. But I do think that they've cleaned up some of the outside rush defense stuff. So I'm excited to see that part of it. Angel Toombs. Here's a guy that doesn't get talked about a lot. Redshirt freshman out of Milwaukee. Was a tight end last year. Playing outside linebacker, 6'5", 230, 240. honestly, if you were just to look at the frame, he looks the part. I mean, he's a big, long, physical guy. Had a couple tackles today. Got some reps with the twos. Had a nice tackle for loss later in the practice. Not the most bursty guy, but I was pretty impressed. He flashed a couple times, and I talked to a couple other people who were there who were watching practice, and they mentioned, yeah, like he's flashed a couple times. So somebody to keep an eye on. Again, starting to work into the twos a little bit. Angel Toombs, in-state guy. Preston Sackman had a really good day. Had a pick. Also had a really nice coverage play against Chris Brooks. Had a really nice tackle in space against Darian Dupree. Again, he's kind of that player that people just don't probably ever give enough credit to. I think Zachman is a player to, I thought he played really well today. And another piece of that secondary, right? We talk about that secondary. Zachman had a nice day as well. Tyler Jancy, stock up. Tyler Jancy getting first team reps, second team reps. He's really physical. There. Now, some of this is Chaney hasn't been in. Chaney's been getting some time off, but Jancy's been really physical. This is a player that you talked to Jackson Aker, said that's him and Allegro, the hardest hitting linebackers that I face. He's a guy who's really put on good weight. He's a guy Brady Collins is high on. Total gym rat. If you remember back to some of the shows we had his coach on. I think Tyler Jancy is somebody to earmark for the future as well. Probably not as much this year, but it's nice to see him start to creep up that depth chart. I think that's most of my notes here. Again, Dilon Jones, Lafayette, good day for Brandon Lane again. Once again, like that's a dude who's definitely going to play and give you quality reps this year. Let's see. Mike H says, optimistic on team till we get some of these high-ranked recruits. All the other Big Ten team. Optimistic on this team till we get some of these high-ranked recruits. All the other Big Ten teams are kind of in a wait-and-see mode. I agree there. Mark D said, TBD impressions. Overall good. Like, overall solid. You know, like, I think it's a B. There's still like, here's what I tell people all the time. There's a reason he's still in college, right? There's a reason with his arm and his speed and his size and his frame, he's still in college. But I think he's looked really good. He has the ability to really throw some dimes, and he's going to hurt teams on the ground. I like him. But there's still going to be a couple throws, I think, once in a while, they're going to force you to rip your hair out. Matt Van Grinston says, if you had to take TVD or Mort, probably Mordecai, which would you take? I think TVD. I think he's got a little more upside, a little more physicality, a little more arm strength. And I think also he's going up against his secondary that's a little better. We mentioned all the guys, but like this secondary could be really good. And that's not even talking about the young guys like Xavier Lucas and Agard when he gets back in there. So I think he's going up against a better defense than Mordecai did last year as well. And I think he's got a few more pieces around him. So I've been overall happy with what I've seen. I think the Badgers could be really good this year with what we've seen the last couple of days out of TVD, even with today's interceptions. Because, I mean, you're not going to hit every throw, right? Like, you're not going to be perfect unless you're an elite quarterback. And so there's going to be some mistakes. You got to live with that and see some of the benefits as well. All right, we're going to wrap it up there. Really do appreciate, as always, everybody tuning in on Wisconsin. Thank you guys so much. More content coming up tomorrow. Plus, we'll cut up some of the clips from the interviews today. Really do appreciate you on Wisconsin, and let's talk tomorrow.